One, her apologies for not being able to be here today. She's up in Hartford trying to petition the legislature to continue to give us the funds we need to do our job. So hopefully she'll be as successful as possible. The other one was the email about the academic dean search. She had planned to make that announcement in person today, but unfortunately was called up to Hartford to be at that meeting. So we'll go ahead and proceed then with the updates that we do have. So first, with regard to administrative services projects, we talked in the past about the boilers. We have new boilers that have been installed over in the Cup building. They're really impressive if you get a chance. I think we're planning to try at some point to have a ribbon cutting, but it was a great project, and it will provide the college with a substantial energy improvement and savings in the long run. The Canby project required some significant reconfigurations on the first floor in the B wing. If you haven't been over there, that project is almost complete. There's a couple of big pieces of equipment that still have to be installed in there, but that's moving along very well. We're also going to be soon starting a lighting project, doing upgrades both to our exterior lighting. That's where we'll start with upgrading the lighting in the parking lots. Again, we're looking to get more energy efficient, and that should be starting soon, and then we'll follow that with doing upgrades to the interior lighting as well. We're also in the process of installing a electric vehicle charging station. It will be installed over at the Cup building. Kind of the first two parking spots there will have a device that will allow for 2 cars at a time to be charged, and that should be proceeding as well. We're still looking to do the tutoring center expansion into the old IT spaces on the first floor in the C wing, and we're hoping for that work to proceed hopefully this summer. And then after that, we are still looking to do renovations or reconfigurations in the A wing, student services wing, and also to do some library renovations as well. And just wanted to do a thank you to the maintenance staff for all their efforts over the break and ongoing to keep the college as clean, as safe, and as pleasant a working environment as possible. With regard to IT efforts, the enterprise networking project continues system-wide, mostly impacting the other community colleges. We have some cleanup work here at Three Rivers, and that'll be taking place over this semester, possibly going into the summer. The 21st century classrooms, we have the prototype phase is complete. Different schools did different things. The next phase has been released with regard to funding, and we're looking for the EdTech committee and to provide recommendations on how we want to, where we want to put more technology or possibly different technology to improve our learning environment going forward. With regard to information security, hopefully everyone who was required completed the refresher training. I believe everyone did. The system office has installed new firewalls, and they are, have been implemented. And I think my feeling, or at least I believe, that those firewalls have been effective in reducing the threats that we have been encountering. The Secure Enclave is another system-wide project that's still under development, and essentially that's where we're going to provide computing resources that are pretty much locked down so we can avoid any release of sensitive information. And just a reminder there too, again, please run the Identity Finder on your systems on a recurring basis to, get rid of any unneeded PCI data. And again, a thank you to the IT staff for their efforts in providing as reliable, state-of-the-art, and secure IT infrastructure as possible. That's pretty much it for me with regard to, unless anybody has any questions. Yes, Larry.
Are the electrical vehicle spots going to be designated just for those vehicles?
Yes,
Security's going to enforce that?
hopefully. What the people have told us about the electrical vehicles, it ends up primarily being used a lot by staff who have those kind of vehicles, and they tend to, learn who else has the vehicles and, say, I'm going to plug mine in. When I'm done, I'll call you, and they do some swapping out. So we'll see how it works out. Yes, Arnie.
Free for the first 3 years.
Say again?
Free for the first.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's, as part of the project, the initiative is we're getting like a big rebate on the cost of it. So as part of that incentive for us to install it is, it's a free service to any of the users for the first 3 years. It's a requirement. And it's open to the public as well. So.
What happened after 3 years?
We'll have to take a look at it. Yeah, it probably would be some type of paid service, where you swipe a debit card or whatever, charge your vehicle. Okay. Up next is Gail to talk about the budget.
All right. You apparently have better news than I do.
We're pretty sure about that.
So now I learned about all the other IT tools we have, toys. Nice. Anyway, thanks for having me. I'm glad to have an opportunity to talk about fiscal year 16 and fiscal year 17 finances. Hopefully you'll get a little bit out. The good news is, the first thing I want to say, because you probably remember the first and the last thing I say, is the college is in good financial position. So we have made some efforts over the last several years, but also particularly over the last 18 months, to put the college in a strategic position so that we can take funding cuts and what have you. I'm not going to tell you we're going to be able to accept them all, but we are in good financial position, particularly relevant to our other sister colleges. There's a lot of colleges that have fund balance problems, that have big deficits that they're dealing with. We don't happen to be in that situation. But that being said, it's a very tight budget time. You can read what you read in the Mirror and the Hartford Courant and those sort of things, and certainly we've been living it here where we've been doing more with less for so many years. It's like a broken record. But unfortunately, or very fortunately, it keeps my office very busy. So the budget process really starts in March. So we're getting ready to start this budget process. Although this year we've already been doing some calculations, we've been responding to some data calls from the board office and from the legislature, and Mary Ellen is up at the legislative office building today with some information that we provided to the board office, and in support of that is hopefully for our cause. The other good thing is there is safety in the numbers. We have been watching the numbers for quite some time. As I already said, our fund balance is very healthy, and we're in a situation right now where we've been able to take all the cuts that they had given us. That being said, we're right there at the cusp. So, the budget process starts in March with what our enrollment is going to be. Steve's going to talk about that. I'm not going to jump into his show, but really we have to tell them up front where do we think our enrollment is going to be. And then after that, we get a funding distribution, and then we have to figure out what we're gonna do with that money. And then along about May, we put the final budget into actually a spreadsheet, and it gets uploaded, and we're ready to go for July 1st. So that's pretty much where the budget process is. You know, we're watching for our opportunities to maximize the numbers all the time. Steve mentioned the EV charging station. That is a $10,000 incentive grant through the Department of Environmental Protection, as well as we're leveraging our ability to spend capital equipment dollars that the board office is holding on our behalf. So essentially, that charging station is costing us nothing. Now, we do have to provide the electricity for 3 years. We don't know what that's going to be, but it should be very minor, and hopefully it'll be a good service now and in the future for, you know, staff, students, etc. All right, so about fiscal year 16. This is kind of a recap of what I did last year. I thought people said that this was the most interesting thing. You know, our operating budget, that's our operating funds. It doesn't include capital funds, grant funds, anything else, but it's our operating funds. Essentially, it's our general fund, and the money that students pay for us, $34 million. That's what our operating funds are. And that is revenues. Tuition and fees, 40% of that is coming from our students. So they're paying about $13.8 million represents of that $34 million tuition and fees coming from our students and their financial aid. So there's also, you know, the financial aid piece there. So what's the rest of it? The rest of it is our appropriation coming from, you know, the legislature and the governor's office. 60%. So this only funds, this is our general fund, it funds salaries and it funds our fringe benefits. So as you can see, that's the breakout. We also this year and last year had one-time developmental education monies as part of PA 1240. And we also got some tuition supplement money. And what that really is our tuition rate only went up 2%, but they made up 3% they gave us. There's no guarantee that that's going to continue. So we look at that as, you know, it's nice to have, but without that, we would also be in having some difficult times. And our expenditures, personnel and fringes, 86% of our budget, 86% of that $34 million is personnel and fringes, really pretty fixed. Institutional financial aid and match money and waivers that we're required to pay. So we're required to put 15% of all of our tuition aside and give it back to students as need-based financial aid. That's a requirement, it's in statute, we can't change that. And then the waivers, we have statutory waivers, veterans, senior waivers, things like that. All of that makes up another 5.5% of our budget. So you start adding these things up, we have very little flexibility. We also handle our overhead expenses. This is our utilities. Or, you know, upwards of about $1 million we spend for utilities, that's electricity and oil, to heat, light, cool the building. That's another 4%. And then support to the system office. We are providing some money back to the system office to provide, you know, the services that they provide. That's another roughly 2%. That sort of goes up and down, which leaves 2.5% is kind of discretionary expenses. It's not a lot. And so that's really where our flexibility is at times. The other thing I wanted to, before I go into fiscal year 17, Steve also mentioned some other projects. I went back. So here's our fiscal year 16. This is just our operating fund budget. This is, you know, what we use for operating funds. You will see some other projects that are occurring around the campus. The EV charging station, we're going to be switching out the parking lot lights and eventually most of the lights inside the building. That money is coming from other pots. And I know there's, you know, people will say, well, why are we doing that when we can't hire people or we can't fill that vacancy? They're different pots of money. So, you know, this is how we leverage those. We have the availability of them. We can't spend those other monies on PS or people. And vice versa, we can't spend our PS money on equipment. So, you know, just as you're walking around, you're seeing some of these things happen, just understand that they're coming out of different pots. And, you know, to the extent that, you know, we're glad to be able to have those pots of money so that we can do those other things. But it's not because you didn't get your, you know, EA or we didn't fill that vacancy. And so that's important to know, because I get that question all the time. Why are we changing the lights out in the parking lot and I can't get a part-time EA? They're different pots of money. So sometimes that's hard to understand. So, what do we know about 17? Here it is. Two little words, not much, right? We've heard what we've heard in the news, we've seen what we've seen in the mirror. There's a lot of information that is not available to us yet. So as bad as the news seems to be, wherever you're getting the news from, we don't really know that much yet. The only thing that really has happened is the governor has announced his budget plan. That really is effectively it. There's a lot that goes on after that. As you know, the legislature will develop their plan. And we'll go back and forth. We will be going back and forth with numbers and proposals, and you'll hear a lot of things coming out. Just want to caution people not to overreact. You know, we obviously need to pay attention, and we're certainly doing that, but don't overreact because we don't really know what's happening. Things like the approval of the tuition and fee rates for next year. We're starting registration April 1st. We do not know what the tuition and fee rates are yet. The board will vote on that in March. So right now, that's pending. A lot of that is going to be based on enrollment and where they think that those numbers are going to go. But again, there's also a resistance to not balance that on the back of students. So there may be no tuition increase. We don't know. The other thing that's happening is people know the collective bargaining contracts are actively being negotiated. All of that's pending. Don't even know when those are going to settle. So literally, we could have a budget going into next year, and I don't even know what the cost for PS, which, as you recall, 86% of our budget is PS. The other thing that I want to note here, between those two lines, is if we have a 1% increase across the board for collective bargaining increases, the math will tell us I need more than a 2% increase in tuition to pay for that. So, you know, you can see how delicate this process is. So, again, we don't know what the collective bargaining is. And also, Steve F. is going to talk about, you know, enrollment planning. Where is our enrollment going to be? But that's where we start the budget process, and we do really do the revenue. So a lot of work is going to be done on planning what our revenue is going to be. This year we did very, very well. We had planned to be 7% down. The good news is we weren't actually 7% down, so I'm not going to take his thunder away, because he will go over those numbers. But hopefully we can do the same thing and be in the same ballpark next year. So, this is what I like to call, you know, this is me on the left-hand side, you know, throwing the hoops and climbing the rope and maybe doing some pull-ups, not literally, but as you can see, I call this my calculator calisthenics. I sit there and I'm over there in my office and I'm doing all these calisthenics because that's where we're in right now. I'm in the mode where we're constantly providing data, we're trying to look down the road, but it's good news for us. Is that we have been paying attention to these numbers for a lot longer. So many times we are short-sighted, and I think the board office recently has kind of set that scenario. Look, we haven't even set the tuition rates for next year, and we're going to start registering students in April. We need to adopt a more longer-range plan, but in order to do that, we're going to have to stabilize our funding streams. And that really is going to come from the governor's office and the legislature, and to a certain extent the board office, to say, you know what, we need to be able to plan on our revenues because we really should be doing, just like UConn does, a multi-year tuition fee approval process. It's good PR for us if we were to do that, because UConn, they just announced their 4 years tuition hike. You know, they had 4 years, they're going to raise tuition, one bad day in the press, and they're all done for 4 years. Unfortunately for us, we do this every year, right at the time we're registering students. So I think there's some thought that we need to kind of change that, and hopefully going down the road that we will actually be able to do that. So again, we want to pay attention to what's going on, but we don't want to overreact, because right now there's not a lot to react to. Just the governor's budget has been presented. So I can open it up to questions. Anybody has any questions? No.
On June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, will we have, do you project that we will have a surplus from this year, a deficit, or will we be breaking even?
Right now, we just did a mid-year spending plan review, and with another 1% budget rescission, now there may be more than 1%, I don't know what that's going to be, but we've planned on another 1%. We're going to end the year with approximately $300,000 positive. So, figure out a $34 million budget, that's not too bad. So that's where we're going to end the year. Any other questions? Edie?
I know the 2% back to the POR is a relatively small number, but what exactly does that represent, 2%?
Well, you have to remember that, you know, it's a very complex calculation, but we have some schools that actually are receivers of money because they're smaller. So it's a delicate balance. But we do pay for things like the board office has a budget office, they have an accounting office, they've got a office of sponsored programs. They also have IT, where we use one instance of Banner. All the IT staff that does the Banner work behind the scenes, programming reports and doing those sort of things, reside up in the board office. So 2% isn't really a lot. And that had been much higher for us. So, you know, I'm happy to see it's only 2%. Oh, Jim?
There was a decision made earlier this year that would allow each of the schools within our system to match the UConn system as far as having armed security guards, but it would be left to the individual campuses. Have we made a decision on that going forward, and if so, how much does that cost?
Well, two-part question. My understanding is we have not made a decision regarding that. And secondly, that if we were to go in that direction, that there was going to be money provided by the legislature. So it wouldn't come out of any of the current funds that we have. Now, that being said, sometimes these monies come and then they fleet away down the road. That would be the question I would have. What's the guarantee that that would be there? So I don't really have an answer for that, but hopefully that is definitely being talked about. Anyone else? Okay, I just want to say, you know, my door is always open. Sometimes people will stop in, they'll have a question. You know, please stop in if you're nervous about something, to the extent I can answer questions, and I always do, or provide you with some documentation. I don't mind doing that either. So, who's up next?
All right, good afternoon. And so what we're going to do today is two things. I'm going to do the enrollment update, all right, for what we've been doing lately for spring 2016. And then followed by me, Christine's going to give you a quick update on a lot of the, what I think are really fabulous and interesting things going on in student services. So first, we're just going to go through a couple of preview slides here. So you're going to get the spring marketing initiatives, a few of them. There were a ton of new initiatives this year for spring in particular. A lot of them that were just like pure marketing kind of things. We did a lot of outreach through print ads, the newspapers, some of these things that are listed in here. We had a Super Saturday, we had e-blast, radio campaigns going on throughout the entire season. On the academic side, we had to go to the distance in the classrooms. We had a TV commercial. Did anybody see the TV commercial? I know some of you did. It was on the Comcast net, and Kim Barfield did a really great job. Kim, thank you for getting the word out to the community. But it really was all over the place. There was at least, according to the statistic, I think it was like 0.6 of the viewership would see the commercial 1.9 times during the holiday season. So it was a 30-second commercial. It was a spin-off of the holiday video that we did at the college, which I think was a 5-minute video originally, and then it was cut down to 30 seconds. You're wondering if that cost a lot of money. Actually, it was incredibly reasonable. I can't remember the number, but it wasn't big enough to remember. I'll say that it was a good deal. And we had that aired for several weeks during the holiday season. That was something new. The other thing, and Christine will talk about it just a little bit, but our advising, I think, was just incredible this year. That really helped us. Once we got the students to the college, we had a lot of academic advising going on. So professors were in student services. I just can't say thank you enough for what that did, not just for us, but for the students. And Christine will talk to you about a data point that's just incredible. And you'll wonder how we were able to manage the volume in the last 2 days of registration. And that was the way. We couldn't have done it without the help. Okay, so let me set the stage for what I'm going to show you next. First, I'm going to give you the ugly tour, right, which is basically how ugly the forecast looks for students in the pipeline. and then I'll give you the positive tour that follows right after that, all right? So here's the projection, and you've seen it before, but this is Connecticut. It's males and females up there. I'm not sure what the spike is for the females a little bit down the road, but that's the projection for Connecticut. High school seniors coming out, coming out of high school, and the numbers projected out to like 2025, 2027. All right, and you can see there's a declining population. There's all kinds of demographics going on there, and this is for the entire state of Connecticut. We have a regional view that I'll give you in just a second. It doesn't look like this, but it's a regional perspective, which is Laura Chin's projection model from IR. Okay, so this is the really, what looks like the ugly part of what's going on. But this matches up with what's going on with the trends in the state of Connecticut. All right, so here's our enrollment by head count, and there's the number that Gail, thank you for not disclosing, but that's your head count for the spring. Today is the freeze, so we are frozen for the numbers. It's plus or minus 1, but right now we're at 3918 as of about an hour ago. We'll know for sure at 12 o'clock whenever we froze it, but that's pretty close. Laura says it's the same number. And that's great news for us. So we're still tracking. While it doesn't look great, I'll show you another view 2 slides from now. But that's the head count. So that's how many students at Three Rivers in the spring, 3,900 students basically. All right, here's our enrollment by FTE. So this tells us, really it points to credits and whether, they're kind of the kludge between full-time and part-time students. But the FTE is where the money is for the college. This was what sustains us for the future, applies to the budget. That's also a great number. It's hard to understand unless you put it into dollars and cents. But 2185, that's a good number. This is the positive way to look at it, all right? So this is where we were going all the way back through November, and look at the trend from left to right. The 2015 line, last year's line, is the green line on top, and we tracked along, and we moved and tightened it near the end, and it really wasn't until the end that we were able to really pick up the students. It was amazing because at one point, the week before the final week to register, we were at minus 12 and I think minus 11 for head count and FTE, and it just looked like it would be unrecoverable. But this is pretty typical student behavior, sadly. We're really working on it. I think the good news is we were able to handle the surge as it was developing. We were never overwhelmed by the volume, except maybe the last 2 days. But we managed it. All right, here's Laura's model, all right? You've seen it before, but it's nice to look at it once in a while again. I look at it all the time. I have it up there right on top of my bookcase so I can compare. So you can see the projection for the spring that Laura did based on regional unemployment, all right? And with all kinds of great validations. I love the way this was created. And it gives you a target to know if you're doing okay, all right? So our low was 3885, and our high was 3913. I forget how Laura put it to me, but I think she said, I don't know.
I said, that just basically says you proved my model wrong, because I under-projected.
I proved her model wrong. But I think this is incredibly great teamwork, because we have an idea of where we should be before we get there. We work hard through our marketing plan, our communications plan to get there. And the end result, you can see Laura's low and high. 3913 is the high. Our head count was 3918. That equates to minus 5.1%. And if you've been looking at the Board of Regents weekly reports, they put them out every Friday. They put them out in FTE, they put them out in head count. Those are the two we're really watching. They also put out the credit hours. Okay, so minus 5.1%, that's just great for us. I don't know what the rest of the colleges are doing right now, but they're all having a difficult time as well, as was previously mentioned. So minus 5.1% as of this morning, right around the freeze, and minus 6% FTE. Phil?
Well, Kevin and Ann had passed around what other college, where other colleges were at. Many of the other colleges were down 10% or more, so we're in very good shape.
We are, indeed. And again, I don't know what that looks like to the finish line because I haven't seen the latest data, but there are some colleges that are really having a difficult time. And at one point, a large number, I'll say, were in double digits in the minus category as you got near the end. And what they were doing is, we always compare to the same time last year. That's what the Board of Regents does. But then as we get near the end, I'm more interested in the last few weeks of comparing to the last year's census final, because that just tells you where you're at. You know, you get what it looks like and what it's going to be. All right, so that's good news for the college. It's good news overall for a lot of things. But really, honestly, there's everybody in the room to thank for this. It's not just what's going on in student services. It's what's going on across the college. The help that we get from academics when it comes to encouraging the students to get in and register, to be advised. There's academic advising going on the academic side, and then over it also when we need your help, and it's so much appreciated. The administrative overhead on this, Dean G, thank you so much. Your folks are amazing. We couldn't pull off a thing like a Super Saturday where we pulled people in. There were 35 people that came in on a Saturday to help to advise, to do facility support, all the things that we needed to pull one of those functions off, so thank you very much. And I also want to mention in the A-Wing, we talk about the A-Wing a lot, but I think it's kind of the unrecognized support that we get in the back from Phyllis and Eric. They're also part of our team. We sometimes forget to put them on our, thank you very muches, but take a bow. Because they really, like we have these parties in the A-Wing and sometimes we forget to invite them. It's not on purpose. We really want them to be there. It's just, they're not on our distribution list, but they know they're always welcome. So thank you so much. All right, final slide is just another note of hope for the future for the college, which is fantastic. This is such good news. It's a little bit off my script, but I wanted to put it on here just to give you a heads up. We have a manufacturing pipeline initiative that's in the works right now, and it's working off a $6 million U.S. Department of Labor workforce grant, and we're going to be a part of it. All right, we're going to be training electric boats outside machinists, and that's going to start up in mid-April. All right, we're going to be doing that down at the technology school in the Grasso Tech down in Groton. And they're hosting us. It's fantastic. We're providing the administrative overhead, but we're the gainers, and we're going to be helping that workforce. EB is struggling to get their folks trained. Our job is to find the people to train them, set up the classroom, and that's set up for mid-April.
To registration with how important it is for them to see their advisors. Our registrar will be activating advising holds for students that are in their first semester. Only first semesters graduated within 5 years are very predictive. And we also are going to move into some non-cognitive measures. But what we found is that multiple assessment begins in student services, but it extends to the classroom and to scheduling. The English and the math faculty have been great in conducting early assessments and giving quick feedback to the students to either confirm or change the initial placements. That wouldn't work unless scheduling was aligning all of the entry-level courses so that a student could be moved from one to another with a minimum of disruption to their schedule. So altogether, we are making this work. We're looking forward to ways to include non-cognitive information in our assessment process. I think we're all aware that persistence, motivation, goal setting, time sacrifice is very important to a student's success, so almost as important as academic preparation. Our academic advising committee looked at smarter measures last semester, and that's the measure that we use for our online students. And we're going to move forward to review collecting non-cognitive information through AccuPlacer. AccuPlacer has the advantage of that we do require all our brand new students to sit for the AccuPlacer test. They could answer background questions right then and there. They're already captured. It doesn't cost any more money. We could even go as far as to include their high school, self-reported high school grades, active places scores, and non-cognitive measures all in one calculation. We develop the background questions, we develop the weighting, so it would be a way to combine all of the measures together, maybe a little bit more consistently. So we'll be reporting back on that, how that works out. Early alert, we'll get sending out the notification tomorrow. We'll be using Progress Alert through Blackboard this semester, as we have for the last couple of semesters. So please use it. It's the only system we have right now for early alert. Again, we're going to look forward to reviewing the early alert system through AdvisorTrack. We subscribe to that for other reasons, and it does provide more services. I think the last time we looked at it, there were some disadvantages, but we're going to look at it again because we need more for early alert. We need to flesh out that system. The commencement committee meeting. The commencement committee has met. We're starting our planning for commencement. The ceremony is Thursday, May 19th at 5 p.m. We selected that time so that more family members could join us without having to take time off from work, and it's much better for the weather to have it later in the day. The timing of the pinning ceremony has not yet been confirmed. There's a few options floating. We have 650 students eligible to walk this year. That includes spring and summer grads. But most significantly, that is 100 more students than last year. I mean, I don't know what the increase is, but that's a big increase. Our cap and gown online ordering begins on March 31st, and disbursement of gowns will be May 10th. We're making a lot of changes as a result of everybody's feedback last year. And if you want to work on graduation, just let me know and we can add you to our working committee. That's about it for now, but I wanted to thank everybody for all their assistance through this rough period. We really couldn't have done it without everybody. We had days, the last day before registration, we advised 200 students in one day. The day before was 150 students. So we had advisors advising 18 and 19 students a day. And that is tough work, but together we did it, and it shows in our enrollment numbers. So thank you. Were there any questions? Yes, Jim.
Are they going to change the procedures for adding courses after the start date of next year? I think the school missed out on a lot of students. I had at least 4 part-time students that trying to get off from work, getting their finances aligned, whatever, did not register by close of business on Wednesday. So there's at least 4, and I think other people have the same thing, particularly if your next week, their first class wasn't until Wednesday night. I don't understand why we adopted that as a model. And hopefully we can go back and be more accommodating to the students.
Well, it's a fine line between student success and enrollment. Our enrollment would go up if we extended it, but all the statistics point out that students who enroll in classes before they start are more successful, drastically more successful. We did extend it a little bit to letting people enroll before the first class met, and maybe we can do more of that next semester. But I don't know that it will be, it's really not my choice whether it gets reinstated. Maybe Cabinet could address it and talk about it again. But at this point, we are sticking with a student can't register for a class that has already met. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, are they planning on increasing the number of Super Saturdays leading up to registration?
Well, I think it proved successful enough that we will always have at least one Super Saturday. I don't know that we would go for more than that.
Just one?
It's a huge logistic to pull that together. And I think the trick is not trying to do more, but trying to time the one that you need the most and when. And so I think we've done a pretty good job on the timing. And there is some point near the end of registration that doesn't get in the way of regular registration. And then also having all the staff that are involved in it be able to participate during homework hours right after the weekend. So, because it's a pretty exhausting experience. And I think if you did it too many times, you wouldn't get the same return on investment. So I think think one is the solution
Okay.
per term.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, last call for any questions on anything. All right, have a good day. Thanks for coming.